Meanwhile, the National Patriotic Coalition has urged President Bola Tinubu to caution the sole administrator in Rivers State, Vice Admiral Ibok-Ete Ibas, over his alleged excesses in the discharge of his duties. Speaking at a press conference in Lagos, the National Coordinator of Activists for Good Governance, Declan Ihekere, and the Secretary of the group, Akintunde Adedeji, said the deliberate actions of the sole administrator are inimical to the sustenance of Nigeria's democracy. The coalition urged the sole administrator to take advantage of the committee, the House of the Representatives set up to oversee the legislative duties in Rivers State.
The probe, though, denied that Mr. Governor Fubara and the Deputy Governor should appear before him to explain why some appointments were made or were not made. We've just been briefed a few minutes ago that they have denied it. But in every story, there could be an altar of truth. So we want to believe that that denial is a perpetual denial. But if it surfaces again that the duly elected governor of a state who is just being suspended is being summoned by a sole administrator that does not have the mandate of the people, we hold him responsible. As far as we are concerned, the governor of Rivers State have not lost his immunity. And as far as we are concerned, the sole administrator does not have any immunity. And so, the democratic setting in Rivers State should be respected to the latter. It should be respected. And so we are calling on Mr. President to make sure that the sole administrator does not go against the tenets.
Now joining us from the nation's seat of power, Abuja, is Dr. Sam Amadi. He is the Executive Director, Abuja Schools of Social and Political Thought. Dr. Amadi, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, sir.
Thank you. I'm actually direct.
Great. Now, Dr. Amadi, slowly but surely, it's clear the emergency rule is here to stay, for lack of a better word. Now, when the ad hoc committee meets with the sole administrator on Thursday, what do you expect will happen?
Well, first, the ad hoc committee is led by seasoned professor, who obviously is part of politics, issues about democratic accountability. First, the committee should press that even though his appointment is questioned to this point, so again, let's consider the legality. His job is to preserve land, because the purpose for the president invoking constitutional power is that there is actually a threat, the present danger, threat to land. So the mandates of the sole administrator is to take those actions to preserve.
I must stop you there. My apologies, Dr. Amadi. Dr. Amadi, we're going to come back to you, but I please beg that you take out the Bluetooth device that you have connected to your phone, and when we get back to you, we'll continue on that questioning so we can have your answers given to us clearly. Thank you very much, Dr. Amadi, but we'll be coming back to you. Now, over to security matters now. Let's start in the north central, where a wave of killings appears to be spreading beyond Plateau State into neighboring Benue State. Suspected herdsmen are believed to have launched a fresh attack on Otobi community in Akpa district of Otukpo local government area of Benue State on Tuesday evening. At the moment, several lives have been lost while hundreds of persons are displaced. The lawmakers representing Otukpo Akpa constituency in the Benue State House of Assembly, Kennedy Angbo, confirmed the attack, which he said began around 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday. Angbo disclosed that 3 corpses had already been recovered, with many more people feared killed. This came hours after similar attacks in Gialuwa village in Guel West local government area, resulting in the displacement of numerous residents. And now we'll be returning to our earlier conversation with Dr. Amadi, and I was asking, Dr. Amadi, let's check your audio first of all. Thank you very much. Welcome back, Dr. Amadi.
Thank you. Can you hear me very well?
Much better. Thank you very much, sir. Now, sir, I was asking what your take is on the rule, seeing that the ad hoc committee has met with, when the ad hoc committee meets with the sole administrator, what you expect to happen.
Okay, I think first, like I said, the committee should let the sole administrator know the remit of his mandate. So primarily, his job is to ensure that there is, if it is true that there was a likelihood of breakdown of law and order in Rivers State, which many of us say there's none, his first job is to make sure that does not happen. And again, to preserve the peace. So they should impress on him that he is not a new governor of Rivers State. He is an administrator appointed to intervene in an emergency, namely to protect the peace for first phase of, for 6 months. And so some of the activities, actions, like for example, appointing local government chairman, whereas caretaker, is totally ultra-vires. Again, it goes against the Supreme Court that has said you just can't have even the executive governor themselves appoint. So if the executive governor elected cannot appoint local government chairman, why would the state administrator, whose job would be to conduct minimal governance, to continue to keep the state running and to address the security challenges whilst the political crisis is resolved by political actors, namely the president, the governor, who is now in sort of limbo, and maybe other political actors, in of FCT and so. So the first thing is to get him back to reality. That is not the elected governor. It's not a new governor. It's just a man called him. He's actually an agent of the president. You see, the state of education is the power of the president to take emergency, extraordinary measures when there's a clear breakdown of law and order. And that's why we said what happened in Rivers State is not a breakdown of law and order. In those circumstances, the work of the sole administrator is like a commander, a military commander, to restore order, to carry out minimal governance that will allow order. And after order has been restored, then the suspended political structure comes up. He shouldn't be making those appointments. He shouldn't be acting as if he's the governor. He should focus basically as the president's agent. Is somebody misappointed and said, yeah, go and see for me. So that's the first thing the committee should let him know. And
so
to
in
ask
addition to that, in addition to that, it also appears that the sole administrator was initially meant to report to the committee of the Federal Executive Council, but that seems not to be the case anymore. But just do tell us what difference this actually makes.
I think there's also a confusion here. The National Assembly inserted itself wrongly in my view. For example, the National Assembly has the powers to make law for states when the State Assembly cannot act due to some circumstances. But when you have suspended the whole democratic order, in my constitutional reading, the National Assembly has no such power. Now, what should happen? That's why it's like a military rule. The State Administration should report to the president, who has taken over. The president has dismantled democratic institutions and taken over democratic institutions in line with the Constitution, even though we argue that those conditions were not met. The National Assembly has sanctioned it. There's no power of the National Assembly to make laws for Rivers State. There's no more lawmaking. If there are going to be regulations, it is actually the president who will issue them based on executive power to make regulations in a state of emergency. It's equivalent of where the president declares a state of emergency overhead, pandemic, and he now takes over. In that declaration, there will be regulations as to what happened. Or you start by, you must curfew between this hour. Those are laws. So I think there's a confusion here. National Assembly does not make law for Rivers State in this circumstance. If, for example, there is a breakdown, the legislature cannot meet, and the National Assembly begins to make law, those laws will not be laws made on behalf of that assembly because that assembly is truncated for whatever reason, and the governor will sign those laws as if they are laws made by the
so Dr. Amadi.
But in this case,
Dr. Amadi, sorry to cut you, but we are on a very short timeline here. I wanted to point something out. Now, the sole administrator had announced he was going to, he announced he was in the final stages of the budget. This was about 2 weeks ago. But up until now, it doesn't seem that that has seen the light of day. So there is a bit of conflict here. How can a committee of non-River State people actually guide a non-indigenous administrator to meet the needs of River State people? What's your take on that?
My view is that this further reinforces the illegality and the senselessness of what's going on. I think what should happen now is clear there's no threat to insecurity. Mr. President should truncate the life of the sole administrator and restore back democracy. These are all patchwork. There's no coherence, there's no constitutional justification. You cannot set a committee to go and supervise and direct how rivers to be governed. The sole administrator is acting under the parent power, which is constitutional, even though misapplied. That's the only person who can take that decision and take it with parent approval. Let's not pretend. That's why it's extraordinary. There's nothing that justifies what's going on in rivers now. Because in the time, the Constitution foresees what a total breakdown of land order. They're going to make laws. So it's just to conserve that law, and the parent imposes this state of emergency. It didn't happen. Now, having made this announcement illegally, on my view, or without justification, the president should truncate it. Otherwise, we are running into deeper market breakdowns of illegality. The House will set up a committee that's not indigenous. There's no constitutional backing for a committee of the House to go to rivers and direct the sole administrator on what to do. The sole administrator who is acting under political authority, and then the people in the state, you pretend to make law for them. That's not what the Constitution says. So I think at this point, we're running deeper into a terrible constitutional mess. And the answer is to pause and admit that even if there was a threat to land order, that threat is no more. It's now time to truncate the sole administrator and restore back democracy in River State. Let's forget the political outcome, whether that governor will help Tinubu's election or not. That's not what the Constitution foresees. The Constitution foresees whether it's actual at war or invasion or such a big calamity that the country could, or part of the country could be in actual real danger.
Well,
at
Dr.
this
Amadi,
point, there's no real danger. There's no real danger here.
Dr. Amadi, I think you've said it all, and I'd like to say thank you very much for giving us your 2 pence on the matter. Thank you.